Are you tired of watching the game and not knowing when to cheer? Are Sundays full of football and confusing lingo? Or maybe sports is a mainstay in your family and you feel on the outside looking in? Well, let's get you in the game. Welcome to Make Sports Easy, a football podcast where we take the seemingly complicated and confusing and make it easy for you. So, let's get the game started. Down, set, hut. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that you all had a great holiday season and continue to have one going into the new year. We have some football to talk about. How about that? I am, as my wife says, our resident expert football guy, Marcus Thomas, and you are listening to the Make Sports Easy podcast. We are going to continue to try to make sports easy, relatable, and fun, while also educating you on how you can learn about the game and talk about the game in whatever circle you want to have more involvement with, whether it be your friends or your family. We want you to be able to, or at work, we want you to be able to join in on these conversations and to be able to show your level of interest with your level of knowledge. So with that, tis the season. We are going to be talking about the playoffs in college football, and we're going to do a quick rundown of the football divisions. Not all of them, but being that we're in the Christmas holiday, we'll talk about the North Pole a lot, where Santa Claus does a lot of his operations. So we're going to go through the NFC North, and if we have time, we will go through the AFC North as well, just to talk about the teams that are in those divisions and why it is important to know where your other, like if you have a significant other or if you have a child who enjoys a particular team, if they're a fan of, super fan, or just really like one team, they are looking at three other teams to their opposition, and we'll get into that later. But before we do that, we are going to talk about the college football playoffs round one, what we saw and what maybe to expect later. We'll just talk about those matchups, and we'll get into our predictions in our next episode. So as predicted, we were going to have two games that were going to be a little bit lopsided when it comes to the talent level. And we were going to have two potentially closer games. Our predictions, we predicted 3 out of the 4 correct. So yay us. And with one game in particular, the Alabama-Oklahoma game, there was one thing I did not talk about, which could have been the linchpin to them having a victory. And it turns out that was one of the reasons why they won that game. So we'll go to the Miami Texas A&M game. Really thought that it could have been a defensive struggle. Not to the level of degree that it was. Didn't think it'd be 3-3 dang near the whole game and we have a bunch of missed field goals. But that goes back to one of the 4 keys that we talk about in our Make Sports Easy PDF in our document that we have, where we talk about the 4 keys to learning the game of football. You got special teams. We talk about the acronym SOD, S-O-D, special teams, offense, and defense. And special teams played a big part in these games, a bigger part than I put emphasis on when we were doing our preview. There were a lot of missed field goals in that Miami Texas A&M game. It was a very windy day. And then sometimes when you make one mistake, it compounds itself and it just becomes an avalanche of you being in your head, overthinking it. And we saw that with Miami's kicker. He missed, I feel like he missed 3 kicks in that game. And some of them were more makeable than others. And then on Texas A&M side, they got a kick blocked from almost point blank range. So you never know how that's going to affect the game as far as momentum and confidence and your rhythm going into the rest of the game. But it really affected both teams because you make decisions that when normally you was like, okay, we're going to kick a field goal right here. Our field goal kicking game isn't doing well. So we're going to go for it on 4th down and take the chance of not having any points once we get this close to the other end zone. So Miami, their both defenses played very well. I feel they were very stout. Winning the game 10-3. It's one of those games where you look at it, it's like, man, no team really. I don't want to say they didn't lose that game, but it was so close and so tight that any one thing, just one drive, could change the whole game. And that's what happened with Miami. They stuck with running the football. They did well all game, and then they broke some big runs late. And they were able to turn that into 7 points and ultimately be the difference in the game. So shout out to Miami. Great job there. Tulane, Ole Miss was basically a repeat of the first time. 31-point differential there. Ole Miss handled business the way to be expected. James Madison proved and showed themselves a competent opponent, I feel, because they lost a lot of people a couple years ago when their coach went to Indiana, currently the number one team in the country. And all intents and purposes, they were supposed to lose, I think, by like 20 points. But they lost by 17. So from that standpoint, I feel like they showed themselves well and against a very high-powered Oregon team that was not going to be stopped. They came out guns blazing, just ready to go. So Oregon and Ole Miss took care of business. They didn't allow the teams to stick around, which was Tulane had some opportunities early. But hey, you can't turn the ball over when you're playing these types of opponents who have high quality talent, or upper echelon, I should say. Not saying they didn't have quality talent. So we'll see how that happens and how that unfolds next year with the group of 5 teams, which we'll talk about as well. Oklahoma, Alabama. That was a huge game, very competitive game. Late, it was quite remarkable to watch Oklahoma jump on top 17-0. I was like, well, we kind of predicted this. They had -3 rushing yards again throughout the first half, if memory serves me correctly. But Alabama just stuck to business. And when you look at turnovers and special teams, it was the difference for Alabama. They had a 50-yard interception return to tie the game 17-17, making that comeback there. They had contributions from the special teams. So when you turn the ball over and you have special teams doing their job, that lends to you coming back. Now, what got them in trouble early, Oklahoma just came out on fire. So that was more so, I think, just their environment was overwhelming. And they just kind of had to take those punches, but they just stayed consistent. And then later, however, in the second half, they started to run the ball pretty well, or enough to where they could have a balanced effect on offense, a balanced attack on offense. And their quarterback, Ty Simpson, did well. There was a close game up to the end. It was 27-24 when Oklahoma got the score right back in within 3 early in the fourth quarter, so it was anybody's game at that point. Both teams had both thrown their biggest punches, but ultimately, I mean, Alabama being able to run the ball in the second half was the key to that entire thing. So shout out to Alabama for staying to the game plan, staying sturdy, and I can't wait to see how they play in the next week's competition, which is going to be a difficult one against the number one team in the country in Indiana. How's that going to play out? I feel like Indiana is the best team, top to bottom, but they'll have to prove that on New Year's Day. The other 3 matchups that are going on is Oregon, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is one of those dark horse teams where they just do everything well. So you really got to bring your A game. Oregon, once again, is explosive. But Texas Tech, I think they're going to take that one. We'll see. We'll get into that later in the next episode. Georgia, Mississippi, Ole Miss is a rematch. There's a key stat to that as well. So we'll say that one for the next episode as well. Gotta keep you wanting something. Gotta keep you wanting. And then Miami, Ohio State is, for all the college football heads out there, it's just a very classic matchup from a all-time great BCS national championship game. And it is not flooded with the same amount of talent and hype that it was at that time. However, I feel like it's still going to deliver some great memorable moments and also just allow people a chance to remember and rekindle those emotions from the first time those teams played back in the day. I think that was like 2001. So that is our talk for college football today. We'll move on to the NFL, and this won't take long because we're not going to dive deep into these divisions. But the reason why it's important for you to know these teams is because these are the teams that you're ultimately competing against to get into the playoffs as an organization. So each divisional winner gets an automatic home game in the playoffs. So you're trying to your first goal is to win your division. Because if you win your division, those are kind of your controllables. That's something that you can pay attention to directly. You win your division. You have the best record in your division. You make it into the playoffs. So it doesn't matter if someone has a better record than you in whatever their situation is. If you win your division, you get in, and for that first round, you get a home playoff game. And that is massive for home field advantage and overall comfortability, just playing at your own home, sleeping in your own bed, and having your fans being able to affect the outcome just by being loud and setting a great atmosphere and giving good energy, So, once again, North Pole. We're going to talk about the NFC North first. Shout out, go Pack Go. And Green Bay Packers is one of the four teams. Chicago Bears, Minnesota Vikings, and Detroit Lions. There are rivalries within this division. A lot of rivalries are divisionally based because they play each other twice a year. So that allows you to, play a familiar opponent and also know where your tiebreaker situations stand. So that gives you an opportunity to, really learn your opponent and play someone that's familiar and be able to tailor your team and game plan around, whatever your division is. Because the NFC is the National Football Conference. And, they have two sides, the AFC and the NFC. So we're talking about on the NFC side, the North Division. Once again, is the Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, Minnesota Vikings, and the Detroit Lions. So those are the teams that are grouped up that you want to know. If any of those teams are significant to you in any type of way, those are your three opponents that you are really competing against to make it into the playoffs. Now we'll switch over to the next conference because there's two conferences in the NFL. We'll go with the AFC North, the American Football Conference. And in that conference, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the stalwarts of the NFL, along with other teams. But they're a very marketable, recognizable team. The Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Cleveland Browns. So those are the teams that compete against each other for that home playoff spot. Once again, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Cleveland Browns. So if any of those people are in your range, or if one of those teams is your favorite team or someone else know's favorite team, those are the other three teams will be the teams that they have a more distinct rivalry with, and they're competing for that home playoff spot. And one thing about that division is they're known as the Black and Blue division, and kind of similar sorts with the NFC North division that we spoke about previously, just because they play a more tough brand of football is what historically they've been revered with, because they're playing like frigid cold weather, and you just have to play a different brand of football when you're in those environments. Not very pass heavy, more concentrated on running the football, being tough, and playing great defense that travels, and having that be what you can lean on. And yeah, those are the two divisions we're going to talk about today. And that's what you need to know about as we head into football, the NFL playoff season, which is right around the corner. Most of the spots have been locked up, but we'll see what happens in these next coming weeks. So with that, I thank you for listening and joining our podcast. Please subscribe and follow wherever you listen to the podcast, whether it be on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Go ahead and like and subscribe, and just assist us, I should say, to reach more people and continue to build this community. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend of football. We'll do game previews next week for the second round of college football playoff. And until then, continue to make sports easy. Let's go.